imagine losing half of the cozy homes where mule deer thrive in northeast Wyoming because of an invasive grass that looks harmless but wrecks their habitat. This is the shocking reality mule deer face with the spread of cheatgrass, an aggressive plant that disrupts their food supply and forces them to abandon once favorable areas entirely. But here's where it gets controversial. Despite this grim outlook, there's still a clear path to turn things around, if only we act wisely and promptly. In the early spring, cheatgrass appears as thin green shoots poking out of the ground, the first sign of life after winter's freeze. At this stage, mule deer might nibble on these tender tips, much like we might absent-mindedly crunch on a stale snack left on our desks. However, as the season progresses and early summer arrives, cheatgrass morphs into dry, brown, and stringy strands that are essentially worthless nutritionally, akin to wanting to eat the empty cardboard box instead of the pretzels it once held. This transformation makes cheatgrass incredibly unappetizing, so much so that mule deer will avoid any area where cheatgrass makes up about 20% or more of the vegetation. This avoidance behavior was detailed in a recent University of Wyoming study published in Rangeland Ecology and Management in September. Researchers Jared Merkel, Brian Mule, and Kurt Smith conducted a comprehensive analysis by tracking the movements of 115 mule deer equipped with GPS collars. By overlaying these movement patterns with plant cover maps, they revealed how deer respond to different cheatgrass densities. When cheatgrass comprises less than 10% of a region, deer continue to browse there. Once it begins to occupy 10% to 16%, deer start steering clear. And if cheatgrass exceeds 20%, that zone becomes a no-go. Put simply, cheatgrass presence diminishes deer habitat quality significantly as it spreads. Worryingly, projections show that in the next 20 years, cheatgrass could infiltrate so extensively that up to half of the northeast Wyoming mule deer habitat might become unsuitable for them. While this invasive grass isn't the only threat to mule deer populations, it constitutes a serious factor contributing to their decline. But, and this is the part most people miss, the study is not all doom and gloom. It highlights a realistic opportunity to reclaim lost ground through smart, targeted herbicide treatments. Cheatgrass isn't new to the American West. Brought over a century ago from Europe and Asia, this non-native invader hitched rides in seed shipments and straw bales. Because it didn't evolve alongside native species, cheatgrass developed a competitive edge. It germinates early in winter and springs up quicker than native grasses and shrubs can rouse from dormancy. This early start lets cheatgrass monopolize precious water and nutrients. However, by midsummer, cheatgrass dries out completely, losing whatever nutritional value it could offer wildlife and becoming a potent fire hazard. Its evolutionary trick? Promoting wildfires that clear out native plants, leaving even more open space for cheatgrass to spread unchecked. Dealing with this persistent problem has frustrated ranchers, biologists, and land managers for decades. Yet, until now, few studies quantified the exact cheatgrass threshold where mule deer just give up on an area. The authors of this new study used movement data shared by biologist Hall Sawyer from Western Ecosystems Technology to draw clear connections between mule deer behavior and cheatgrass prevalence. Jill Randall, the Wyoming Game and Fish Department's Big Game Migration Coordinator, who is not part of the study but is well-versed in mule deer ecology, finds the study's results intuitive. She points out that mule deer are highly selective feeders. When given a choice, they leave invasive cheatgrass behind to graze on native options. If cheatgrass is sparse and mixed in with native plants, deer might nibble on it. But once cheatgrass dominates, around 20% or more, they will go elsewhere, Randall explains. The real concern arises when deer face fewer alternatives, forcing them into suboptimal habitats. So, what about the future? Losing half of their habitat to cheatgrass over 2 decades sounds catastrophic, and it is, especially since mule deer already grapple with other stressors like energy development, expanding roads, fencing barriers, and severe drought conditions. But help is at hand. The researchers place hope in a relatively new herbicide called Rejuvra, which gained EPA approval in 2020 and is actively used across western rangelands. This herbicide targets annual invasive seeds like cheatgrass while sparing native perennial plants and grasses that mule deer depend on. Though effective, treatments with Rejuvra are costly and require multiple applications over time. Randall emphasizes that despite the expense, it's a vital tool for protecting sagebrush ecosystems, a critical foundation not only for mule deer, but also sage grouse, many songbird species, and even native lizards. Moreover, a separate August study using camera traps demonstrated that mule deer readily return to areas where cheatgrass has been successfully eradicated and native vegetation restored. Smith, Merkel, and Mealor's modeling echoes this optimism. Well-executed cheatgrass control can lead to substantial mule deer repopulation, potentially reclaiming nearly all the habitat lost to cheatgrass incursion. Their message isn't intended to provoke panic, but to underscore the urgency and possibility within reach. Recognizing these stakes, Wyoming's Governor Mark Gordon and legislators stepped up earlier this year, allocating tens of millions of dollars through grants and loans to combat invasive grasses and support wildfire recovery initiatives. To summarize succinctly in Smith's words, if we do nothing, we're in trouble, but there is hope. So what do you think? Should more resources be poured into herbicide treatments to save mule deer habitat, or are there alternative methods that might bring better long-term results? Could reliance on chemical solutions create new problems for native plant communities? Share your views. Agree or disagree, because this conversation is far from settled.